Welcome back to the deep dive. We are so glad to have you with us today. We are looking at something that it feels a bit like a forbidden topic in a high-performance world. We aren't talking about optimizing or winning or, crushing your goals, at least not in the way you usually hear about it. We're talking about the mechanics of crashing.
Crashing, tripping, spiraling.
Yeah.
The stuff we usually edit out of the biography. The stuff we desperately try to hide.
Exactly. And to set the scene, I want you to imagine a very specific, a very universal physical sensation. You're driving a car on a highway. Maybe you're late. Maybe you're just tired. Suddenly, the weather turns bad. Maybe it's black ice. Maybe it's a torrential downpour where the rain is hitting the windshield so hard the wipers can't keep up. Visibility drops to, almost zero. You can feel the car start to hydroplane just a little bit. What do you do with your hands?
Oh, instantly. You grab the wheel, you squeeze it, you lock your elbows.
You white-knuckle it, you stiffen your shoulders up to your ears, you stare straight ahead through that foggy glass, and you tell yourself one thing over and over again: do not crash, do not crash, do not crash.
And the source material we're covering today argues that this specific reaction, that physiological tightening, that hyper-focus on avoiding the air, is exactly what sends you into the guardrail.
It's the paradox of control. It's like when you're carrying a full cup of coffee and you tell yourself, don't spill, and then your hands start shaking.
Yes. Or you're walking on a narrow beam and the only thing you can think is don't fall, which of course makes you look at your feet, and then you fall. It's the same principle.
So we are unpacking a fascinating, somewhat brutal but ultimately incredibly useful text titled The Art of Failing Forward by Thaddeus Mitchell. And I want to be clear right off the bat, because I know our listeners and I know you want actionable insights, not fluff. This isn't a motivational poster. This is not a cat hanging from a branch saying, hang in there.
Far from it. No. Mitchell is actually quite clinical. He's almost like an engineer about this. He treats failure less like a moral failing and more like a physics problem. He's arguing that we need to dismantle the myth of perfectionism, not because it makes us feel bad, though it does, but because it's structurally unsound. It just doesn't work. It's bad engineering for a human life.
The mission for this deep dive, then, is to hand over the toolkit Mitchell proposes. It's about shifting how we process effort and outcomes so we can stop white-knuckling the steering wheel of our careers, our lives, everything. Because when you're white-knuckling, you can't actually feel the road, can you? You lose all that subtle feedback.
No, you lose the feedback entirely. That's a great point. Mitchell points out that you can't steer if your muscles are locked. It's impossible. If you're rigid, you break. If you are flexible, you survive. But to be flexible, you have to let go of the idea that you can control every single variable. And that's terrifying.
It is terrifying. So let's start with the antagonist here, the villain of the story. Perfection. We usually frame perfection as the ultimate goal. It's the gold standard. It's what we put on our performance reviews. But Mitchell has a definition that it stopped me in my tracks. He calls perfection a sinkhole with good lighting.
It's such a deceptive image, isn't it? A sinkhole. But with good lighting, it's visceral.
It is. It implies that it looks inviting. It looks like a place you want to be. It has ambiance. Why is that? If perfection is a trap, if it's a sinkhole that's going to swallow us, why are we all running toward it?
Because of the lighting.
Yeah.
That's the key. The lighting represents safety. That is the core seduction Mitchell identifies. We don't chase perfection because we simply love the work or want it to be good. Not really. We chase it because we are terrified of the alternative. We convince ourselves that if we are perfect, if the report is flawless, if the presentation is stunning, if the parenting is impeccable, then we are bulletproof.
Bulletproof from what, though? What's the real threat?
Judgment, abandonment, ridicule. I mean, at its core, it's confirmation of that nagging suspicion that we aren't actually good enough. Mitchell argues that perfection is essentially a defense mechanism. It's a shield. We think, if I do everything right, no one can hurt me. No one can fire me, no one can leave me, no one can say I didn't try hard enough.
But the problem with carrying a shield that heavy is the weight. You can't ever put it down. You have to sleep with it.
Exactly. And that's where Mitchell uses the treadmill analogy, and it's exhausting just to read it. He asks us to imagine living our entire lives on a treadmill set to an incline of 15. You know that incline at the gym where you're practically climbing a wall?
Oh, yeah, the lung burner setting, the one you only do for like 30 seconds.
Right. Now imagine doing that all day, every day. You are sprinting. You have to sprint just to stay in the exact same spot. You aren't getting ahead. You're just maintaining your position as the perfect person.
And the moment you stop sprinting, or even just slow down to an incline of 10,
You fly off the back. That is the psychological state of perfectionism. It's a state of constant, desperate maintenance. It's exhaustion. But more than that, it creates a state of perpetual fragility. When your entire identity is tied to flawless performance, you have no margin for error. You are always one bad Tuesday away from a total identity collapse.
That's the high-stakes feeling we all get. It explains why a typo in an email can ruin your whole afternoon. It's not just a typo, right? It's evidence that I am incompetent. It's evidence that the shield has a crack.
Right. Becomes catastrophic. It's not proportional.
Yeah.
And Mitchell's point is that this isn't just painful. It's inefficient. It's strategically dumb. You cannot innovate, you cannot grow, and you certainly cannot lead effectively if you are terrified that one wrong step will destroy you. You become risk-averse. You stop trying new things because new things are messy, and you don't do messy.
So if perfection is the sinkhole, what is the solid ground? If we step off that horrible treadmill, where do we land? This is where Mitchell pivots here to what he calls the beautiful paradox, or the physiology of failure.
He starts with a very grounding statement, almost like a law of nature. He just says, effort comes with gravity.
I like that. It strips all the emotion out of it. It sounds like a law of physics, which I guess it is.
It is.
Yes.
And it normalizes the fall. Gravity isn't personal. It doesn't pull you down because it hates you. It doesn't pull you down because you're a bad person. It pulls you down because you are a physical object in a physical world. So Mitchell applies this to effort. Falling doesn't happen because you are broken. It happens because you are in motion.
If you're standing perfectly still, you won't trip.
Precisely. The statue never stumbles. The statue looks great, very dignified. But the statue also never goes anywhere. It gathers dust. The only people who aren't failing are the ones who aren't trying. It's as simple as that. So from there, Mitchell invites us to look at the floor differently. This is one of my favorite metaphors in the whole text. He compares the floor to the ceiling.
The floor tells you something the ceiling never will. Okay, let's unpack that. The ceiling is success, right? That's where we are all looking.
The ceiling is the goal. It's the promotion, the award, the finished product. It's clean, it's shiny, it's way up there. And we spend all our time looking at it, craning our necks, imagining what it's like up there. But Mitchell says the ceiling is silent. It doesn't teach you anything about your footing. It doesn't tell you how you got there or how to stay there. It's just a destination.
But the floor,
That's
where you end up.
the floor is where you land when you crash. And the floor is rich with data. Mitchell writes that the floor reveals where the dust is, where the boards creak, and where your balance went wonky.
So when you are lying face down on the carpet, metaphorically speaking, you are actually in a unique position to analyze the structural integrity of your approach. You're up close to the mechanics of why things went wrong. You can see the faulty wiring.
Yes, and that's when he calls failure feedback with a bruise.
Feedback with a bruise. I like that. It acknowledges the pain. It's not just feedback. The bruise is real.
The bruise is real, but it separates the pain from the meaning. The bruise will heal. The feedback is the valuable part. It's data. It's not a verdict from a judge saying guilty of incompetence. It's a mechanic saying, okay, structure failed at stress point A, or insufficient fuel for this distance.
Yeah.
If you can shift your perspective from the shame of the fall to the analysis of the floorboards, you stop being a victim of failure and start being a student of it.
This leads directly into his metaphor about oxygen, which I think is so crucial for the high achievers listening who might think, okay, learning is great, but I want to win. He says, so the win is nice. The learning is oxygen.
This completely flips our usual hierarchy, doesn't it? We usually treat the win as the oxygen. I can't breathe until I close this deal. I can't relax until I get the degree. We literally hold our breath until we succeed.
And the learning is just, I don't know, a consolation prize, like a participation trophy we give ourselves.
Right, a nice side dish. At least I learned something, we say, usually sarcastically, rolling our eyes. But Mitchell paints this picture of first place. He says, joke's on me, first place just hands you a heavier trophy and says, cool, now hold this while climbing.
That is hauntingly accurate. The reward for good work is almost always just harder, more complex work. You get promoted, now you have more responsibility and more pressure, you win the championship, now you have to defend the title against everyone who's gunning for you.
The win is static. It's dead weight, in a way.
Yeah.
It doesn't help you with the next step. It's just something you have to carry. But learning is the fuel. It's the oxygen that allows you to keep ascending. If you cut off the learning because you are too afraid to fail, because you're too busy staring at the ceiling, you suffocate your potential. You might hold the trophy for a moment, but you won't be able to climb any higher because you've run out of air.
Okay, so we understand the mechanics, gravity exists, the floor has data, the trophy is heavy, but knowing that intellectually is so different from feeling it emotionally. Because when I fail, I don't feel like a scientist analyzing floorboards. I feel like a loser. I feel ashamed.
And that brings us to the psychological heavy lifting. This is the hardest part of the whole book, decoupling identity from performance.
Mitchell identifies what he calls the whisper of perfection. It's that little voice that says, if you don't get it right, you aren't right.
That conflation of doing and being is the absolute root of the pain. If my performance is bad, then I am bad. If the product failed, I am a failure. There's no space between the two.
So Mitchell suggests a counter mantra, a small rebellion, he calls it. And the sentence is, I'm allowed to be in progress.
It sounds so soft, I know. I'm allowed to be in progress. It sounds like something you'd see on a needlepoint pillow. But in a culture that demands instant optimization, that demands you arrive fully formed, admitting you are a work in progress is a radical act. It creates a buffer, and it stops you from making your soul answer for your spreadsheet.
I want to pause on that phrase, making your soul answer for your spreadsheet. That hits deep. Can you expand on that a little?
Yeah, of course. We do it all the time. You send a bad email or mess up a calculation on a report. That's the spreadsheet. That is an external object. It's a task. But then you feel this deep existential sense of unworthiness. That's the soul. You feel shame. You feel like you're an imposter. Mitchell is saying you have to build a firewall between those two things. Keep them separate. The spreadsheet is data. Your soul is your internal worth. One does not dictate the other. You can have a messy spreadsheet and a worthy soul. Both can be true at the same time.
And he frames this internal battle as a fight between shame and permission.
Shame stalls momentum. This is a biological fact. When we feel shame, the primitive part of our brain, the amygdala, it wants to hide. We freeze. We want to become small. We stop trying because we want to stop the exposure. We withdraw. So shame is the enemy of progress. Permission, on the other hand, creates movement. If I have permission to be messy, I can keep moving. I can try the next thing without this huge emotional hangover.
But Mitchell is a realist. I really appreciate that he doesn't go too far into the everything is beautiful territory. He says, and I love this, let's not poeticize the pavement.
Right? Falling hurts. He's not a masochist. He acknowledges the sting, the embarrassment, the frustration. He's not saying we should enjoy face planting, but he contrasts pain with purpose against comfort that calcifies.
Calcification, that's turning to stone. That's a really scary image.
It is. If you stay in your comfort zone, if you never risk the fall, you harden. You become brittle. You stop adapting. You become the statue we talked about earlier. Pain with purpose is dynamic. It hurts, but it breaks down muscle so it can grow back stronger. It's the difference between injury and exercise. One diminishes you, the other builds you.
And this is where he flips the script on control again. We started by saying perfectionists are control freaks who think control means never falling.
But Mitchell argues that real control, true agency, returns in the unglamorous act of getting up. When you are paralyzed by shame, you have no hands. You are helpless. You are just lying there hoping no one saw you. But the moment you say, okay, that was a mess, I am in progress, you get your hands back. You can pick up the pieces. You can clean up the spill. You can decide where the next beam goes. That is agency. That is true control.
Okay, so we've laid the philosophical foundation. We know why we do it and why we shouldn't. Now I really want to get into the how. Because Mitchell promises a toolkit, not just a lecture. How do we actually practice this in the wild on a stressful Wednesday afternoon?
He gives us several really concrete strategies. The first one is about how we keep score. He calls it Strategy 1, redefining the win as effort.
This implies shifting the question from, did I win the race, to something more like, did I run like I meant it?
Exactly. This is the crucial distinction between input and outcome. In complex systems like the economy or raising children or any kind of creative work, outcomes are, as Mitchell puts it, moody.
Moody is a polite way of saying completely random sometimes.
Completely. You can write the perfect proposal, you can do all the research, build a perfect slide deck, and the client might decline because their budget got cut that morning, or because the CEO is in a bad mood, or their competitor offered something you couldn't. You can do everything right and still lose. If you grade yourself on the outcome, your self-worth is at the mercy of luck and other people's whims. That is a recipe for misery.
So we have to focus on the input, the things we actually can control.
The input is entirely yours. Did you prepare? Did you focus? Did you execute with integrity? Did you ask for help when you needed it? Mitchell argues you need to grade yourself on the papers you actually wrote, not on how the teacher was feeling that day. If you define the win as, I gave 100% effort based on the energy I had today, you can walk away from a loss with your confidence intact. You can say, I did my part. The universe just didn't cooperate today. On to the next one.
This leads to the second strategy, which I think is my personal favorite because it deals with energy management and burnout. Strategy 2. Ceilings and floors.
This is so crucial for sustainability. Mitchell asks us to set 2 boundaries for our performance, not just one.
Okay, let's define them really clearly. What is the floor?
The floor is the minimum standard of performance you will still be proud of on a bad day. We're talking about a day where you have a headache, the tech is glitching, you didn't sleep well, and maybe your coffee stalled on your shirt. On that day, what is the baseline execution that lets you say, I kept my promise to myself and my team?
And the ceiling, I assume, is the opposite of that.
The ceiling is the spicy version, as he called it. That's when the stars align. You're in flow, you're crushing it, you are witty, you are charming, you are a productivity machine.
The trap, then, is that we try to live at the ceiling. We think that's our new normal.
Correct. We hit the ceiling once. We have one incredibly productive day where we clear our inbox and solve a major problem, and we decide that is our new standard. We say, I did it yesterday, so I must do it today. And when we naturally regress to the mean, when we have just a normal, average day, we feel like failures. We weaponize our best days against our average days.
So what's Mitchell's rule here? How do we use this model?
His rule is strict. Anything above the floor is bonus points. You are not allowed to weaponize the gap between the floor and the ceiling against yourself. If you hit the floor, you passed. You won the day. If you hit the ceiling, great. Celebrate it. But do not expect the ceiling to be the floor tomorrow.
Can we apply this to a real-world scenario? Maybe something like fitness or parenting. I feel like parents are constantly being told they are failing.
Parenting is the perfect example because the guilt is so high and the variables are so out of your control. The ceiling parent, the one we see on social media, cooks organic, balanced meals from scratch, engages in 2 hours of screen-free educational play, maintains a calm, gentle voice at all times, and creates magical childhood memories daily.
That sounds absolutely lovely and completely impossible to sustain 24/7 without a staff of 5 and a trust fund.
Right. It's a performance, not a life.
Yeah.
So on a Tuesday when you are exhausted and your toddler is having a meltdown, if you hold yourself to the ceiling, you will snap, you will yell, you will feel terrible, you will feel like you are ruining your children.
So what's the floor? What does a good enough floor look like for a parent on a tough day?
The floor might be this simple. Everyone is fed, even if it's cereal for dinner, even if it's takeout for the 3rd time this week, everyone is physically safe. And I managed to connect with each child for at least 5 minutes, and I didn't lose my temper more than once. That's it.
Everyone is fed, everyone is safe, and some connection happened. That feels achievable, it feels kind.
It is. If you hit that floor on a bad day, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, good job, you did it. You don't say, I'm lazy. You don't say, I'm a bad parent. You say, I respected the floor. This prevents burnout. It keeps you in the game for the long haul.
It's giving yourself permission to have seasons. Seasons of high performance and seasons of just maintenance.
Exactly. You cannot redline the engine forever. The floor is the idle speed. It keeps the car running without blowing a gasket.
Okay, so moving on to when things actually go wrong. Because even with a good floor, sometimes we trip. Sometimes we fall right through the floorboards. Strategy 3 is the debrief ritual.
This is all about stopping the spiral. When we fail, our brains love to tell these big, dramatic stories. I'm an idiot. I'll never succeed. Everyone hates me. I should just quit and move to a cave and become a hermit. Mitchell wants to replace that story with data. Cold, hard, useful data.
And he suggests 3 specific questions. What worked? What didn't? What now?
They're very simple questions, but he adds a constraint that changes everything. 1 sentence each.
1 sentence, that's it. Why the constraint?
To cut off the emotional supply, he says, no dissertations. You are not writing a trial transcript for your own prosecution. You are not a lawyer making a case against yourself. You are collecting breadcrumbs. The moment you start writing a paragraph, you start justifying or blaming or wallowing in the emotion of it all.
Let's try this with an example. Let's say I gave a presentation to the board, and I completely froze during the Q&A. Someone asked a question, and my mind just went totally blank. It was awkward. Total silence in the room. I feel like crawling into a hole. How do I debrief that?
Okay. Without the ritual, you'd spend 3 days replaying that silence in your head. You'd imagine what they were all thinking. You'd lose sleep. It would be a whole thing. With the ritual, we strip it down. Question 1. What worked?
I guess the slides looked good. And the main part of the presentation before the Q&A, that was clear and well rehearsed.
1 sentence. Good.
Yeah.
The main presentation was clear. Perfect. Question 2. What didn't work?
I wasn't prepared for the specific questions about the Q3 budget implications. I hadn't thought that far ahead.
Good. Very specific. Actionable. It's not, I'm bad at Q&A. It's, I was unprepared for a specific topic. Question 3. What now?
I need to prepare a FAQ cheat sheet for the budget section next time and practice it with a colleague.
Done? Do you feel the difference?
Yeah, it feels lighter. It's so much lighter. It turns it into a logistical problem, not a character flaw. It's actionable.
Exactly. It's an engineering issue. The problem was a missing cheat sheet, not I am a frozen failure who can't speak in public.
This connects directly to strategy 4, which is separate guilt from data.
And Mitchell personifies these two forces, which is really helpful. It gives them voices. Guilt says, I'm the problem. Data says, this tactic didn't work.
Guilt slams the door shut. It says, I'm not cut out for this. I should just quit. It's an endpoint.
And data picks the lock. Data says, okay, that door is locked. Let's try the window, or let's get a crowbar, or let's find the key. Data is purely functional. It opens the next possibility. Guilt shuts down all possibility.
It really reminds me of a scientist in a lab. If a beaker explodes, they don't cry and resign from science. They don't say, I'm a bad person because the chemical reaction failed. They say, too much pressure. Let's adjust the valve and try again.
We need to treat our lives more like a lab and less like a courtroom. In a courtroom, someone has to be guilty. Someone has to pay. In a lab, everything is just an experiment. There are no crimes, just results. And every result is useful information.
Okay, let's talk about maintenance, mental hygiene, because this isn't a one-time fix, is it? You have to keep your brain clean. Strategy 5 is what he calls visible micro-bravery.
This is the daily workout. This is how you build the muscle. Mitchell says courage is a muscle. Use it or it sulks. If you don't use it, it atrophies. It gets weak.
And the assignment is to do one thing every single day that you could reasonably mess up. Just one small thing.
Just one thing. It doesn't have to be huge. Send the email you're scared to send. Ask the dumb question in the meeting. Wear the bright yellow shirt you think is too bold. Post the drawing you made online, even if it's not perfect. Hit publish on the blog post.
Why is it so important that we do this daily? Why the consistency?
It's inoculation. If you wait for the big moment to be brave, the big speech, the marriage proposal, the career change, you will freeze. The stakes feel way too high, and you haven't practiced the sensation of risk. You haven't practiced the feeling of your heart beating a little bit faster.
So you're exposing yourself to small, manageable doses of potential failure, so you build up antibodies to the fear.
Exactly. You do it, and you realize that if you ask the dumb question, the world doesn't end. Maybe someone looks at you funny for a second. You survive. You learn that the monsters in your head aren't as big as you thought, and more importantly, you learn that you are resilient. You can handle a little awkwardness.
Speaking of the monsters in our heads, strategy 6 is about dealing with that inner critic. Mitchell calls this naming the saboteur.
This is a classic cognitive behavioral therapy technique, distancing. But Mitchell's specific image is hilarious, and I think really, really helpful. He calls his inner perfectionist the auditorium custodian.
Okay, paint the picture for us. I can almost see this guy.
Imagine an old, grumpy custodian in a massive, beautiful theater. He's pushing a mop. He's wearing gray coveralls that are a little too big. He's shushing everyone. He doesn't want a performance to happen. He wants the theater to be empty because empty theaters are clean and easy to manage.
He wants to minimize the mess. He hates footprints, spilled popcorn, any sign of life.
Right. So when you're about to do something bold, which is inherently messy, which involves crowds and noise and risk, the custodian starts clanking his bucket. He yells, "Don't do that. You'll spill. People will see. It's going to be a disaster." He's trying to get you to call off the show.
Oh, and Mitchell's response isn't to fight him, right? He doesn't scream back at the custodian.
No, that just gives him more power. You don't fight the custodian. You acknowledge him. You turn to him and you say, "Thanks, bud. I know you want to keep it clean, but I've got the stage now. I'm going to make a mess. And that's okay. You can clean it up later."
It's so disarming. It's brilliant. You're reducing the voice of doom to a grumpy but well-meaning guy with a mop.
It creates space. You can say, oh, that's just the custodian worrying about the mess again. It's not the truth with a capital T. It's just a neurotic reaction from a part of your brain that wants safety above all else.
I think everyone needs to go home and name their saboteur. Mine is definitely a safety inspector with a clipboard and a hard hat. She's very, very concerned about regulations and protocol.
You just tell her, "Thank you, Inspector. I've noted the risks. Your concerns are logged. We're proceeding anyway." You validate the fear without letting it drive the car.
Okay, strategy 7 might be the most practical and maybe the oddest of them all. Schedule forgiveness.
Literal scheduling, as in put it on your Google Calendar with an alert.
3:15 p.m. to 3:20 p.m. Forgive myself for the typo in the client email.
It sounds absurd, but think about it. We schedule stress all the time. We schedule deadlines, crunches, meetings we dread. We anticipate the pain. Why not pencil in the mercy? Why not schedule the release valve?
Mitchell suggests doing this about 10 minutes after a stressful event. Why the delay? Why not do it immediately?
Biology. Immediately after a mistake or a high-pressure event, your cortisol is spiking. You're in fight-or-flight mode. You can't think rationally. You're just trying to survive. You need a buffer. 10 minutes gives your nervous system time to regulate a little. You walk around the block, get a glass of water, stare out the window, then the alarm goes off on your phone.
It creates a container for the suffering. It gives it a beginning and an end.
Exactly. Instead of carrying the shame of a mistake all afternoon, having it infect every other interaction, making you snap at your spouse or ignore your friends, you have a designated endpoint. At 3:15, you do the debrief ritual, you forgive it, and you move on. It makes forgiveness a proactive habit, not just something you hope happens eventually. It says the punishment ends here.
I want to pivot now to a really important nuance, because whenever we talk about forgiveness and floors and good enough, there is a certain type of listener who gets very nervous. They think, wait, is this just an excuse to be mediocre? Are we lowering the bar? Are we just giving up on being great?
The fear of complacency. Yes, it's a very real fear for high performers. And Mitchell addresses this head-on in the section on ambition.
He calls it the twist. Striving still matters.
Because it does. Mitchell admits he loves a scoreboard, he likes competition, he wants to win. He's not saying we should all just sit on the couch and meditate. The goal isn't to stop striving. The goal is to change why you are striving.
And it comes down to his phrase, who is holding the leash?
That's the critical distinction. Number one means giving your all.
But are you doing it to explore your potential, or are you doing it to prove your worth?
If you are hustling to heal a wound, to prove you are lovable, to prove to your parents or your ex or your inner critic that you matter, that hustle will burn you out.
It will harm you, because it's never enough. Even if you win, the wound is still there. So you just have to win again, but bigger this time. But if you are hustling because you are curious, because you love the game, because you want to see how good you can get, that hustle is healthy. That's life-giving. You can still want to be the best. You just can't need to be the best to survive psychologically.
This brings us to the whole concept of the resume versus the reality.
We live in a world of resumes. LinkedIn profiles, social media feeds, holiday newsletters. We see the clean story. Success after success. Promotion. Award. Happy family photo on vacation.
The highlight film, no bloopers. Exactly. But we are living in our own draft footage. We see our own outtakes. We see the 50 bad ideas before the one good one. We see the rejections. We see the days we stayed in bed because we were overwhelmed. And we compare our blooper reel to everyone else's highlight film, and we feel like a fraud.
Mitchell warns, don't let someone else's highlight film bully your draft footage. That is such a powerful instruction.
Because the people who look like overnight successes, the people you see on the top of the podium, they live in the loop. Mitchell breaks down the loop of growth into 4 steps. Aim precisely, land imperfectly, review generously, go again.
Can we repeat that? That feels really important. Aim precisely, land imperfectly, review generously, go again.
Most of us break the loop at step 3. We aim, we land imperfectly, because that's inevitable, nobody's perfect, and then we review brutally.
We beat ourselves up, we call ourselves names, we say, I'm stupid, I shouldn't have even tried.
And because we beat ourselves up, we don't want to go again. We quit, we stop the loop, we're too bruised. Generosity is the lubricant that keeps the wheel turning. If you can review your mistakes with kindness, oh, interesting error, let's fix that, you're eager to try again. That is how you eventually get to the highlight film, by having thousands of unseen, generously reviewed failures.
So the people at the top aren't the ones who never failed. They are just the ones who forgave themselves fast enough to take another shot.
Precisely. They have a faster refractory period. They crash, they reboot, they go. They don't linger in the crash site, building a monument to their failure.
So what happens when we actually win? Because it does happen sometimes, and Mitchell has thoughts on that too.
He does. And his first piece of advice is celebrate loudly. Don't be too cool for school. Don't downplay it. Enjoy the victory. Pop the champagne. You earned it. But be careful.
Right. Before perfection returns with a tape measure and a frown.
Exactly. Success could be a trap too. If you win and you think, okay, I won because I'm perfect, you've just raised the ceiling and locked yourself back in the cage. Now you have to defend that perfection, which is even more exhausting than trying to attain it.
So he suggests a bridge-building question to ask yourself after a win. What did this teach me about how I want to show up tomorrow?
This grounds the victory in your agency, not just in the outcome. It connects the success back to the effort, to the inputs. I won because I prepared well. I won because I stayed calm under pressure. I won because I asked for help.
Hmm.
That is a lesson you can carry forward. It means you can replicate the process, even if you can't guarantee the outcome.
It turns the podium into a bridge to the next challenge, rather than a pedestal where you have to stand perfectly still and not move.
Exactly. A pedestal is a very small, very precarious place to live.
As we wrap up, I want to leave the listeners with the final philosophy Mitchell offers. It's a choice, really, between two ways of being.
He calls it the ultimate choice. And the choice is this. You can be a beautiful attempt or a polished avoidance.
Oof. A polished avoidance. That stings. That feels very personal to me.
It's a scathing but perfect description of perfectionism. You look great, you're shiny, you make no mistakes. But you are avoiding life. You are avoiding the risk of being seen, of being messy, of being human. Avoidance grows stories about you. Oh, they're so put together. But attempts grow you.
One is a life, the other is a cage.
A cage can be gold-plated. It can be very comfortable, very safe. But it is still a cage. The messiness of the attempt, the stumbling, the trying, the learning, the scars, that is where life actually happens. That is where the flavor is.
So to the listener right now, maybe you have a project you're terrified to start. Maybe you need to have a difficult conversation. Maybe you want to learn a new language, but you're afraid of sounding stupid. What is the final word from Thaddeus Mitchell?
The faddism of the day.
Yeah.
I don't chase flawless anymore. I chase honest.
Honest effort, honest mistakes, honest growth.
Pick yourself up, dust off the pride, keep the lesson, not the label,
Yeah.
and take the next swing.
Because the point isn't perfection, it's just contact.
The ball doesn't need the bleachers every time. It just needs the bat.
Just make contact. Even a foul tip is contact. Even a bunt is contact.
The swing is the victory.
I love that. All right, we are going to leave you with that thought. Go out there, make a mess, learn something, and for heaven's sake, schedule that forgiveness.
3:15 p.m., be there. Or, whatever works for you.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
Before we fully cut the feed, I want to circle back to one thing we talked about earlier. We talked about micro-bravery, the idea of doing small things to inoculate yourself against fear.
Yes. The daily practice. The workout for your courage muscle.
So I tried this the other day, actually. After reading the source material for this, I wanted to see if it actually worked or if it was just, good advice on paper.
Oh, yeah. What did you do? Nothing too crazy, I hope. No. It was in a meeting, a pretty high-level strategy meeting. And someone used an acronym. I think it was EBITDA, which I should know. I know generally what it means, earnings before interest, taxes, all that. But in the context of what they were saying, I wasn't 100% sure how they were applying it to this specific project. And the old me, the polished avoidance me, would have just nodded.
Right. The safety inspector in your head would have been screaming, "Don't ask. They'll think you don't know business. Just smile and look thoughtful."
Exactly. I would have scribbled it down and Googled it frantically under the table, hoping no one noticed. But I decided to try the micro-bravery thing. I felt my heart rate go up a little, and I raised my hand and said, "Sorry, can we just clarify exactly how we're calculating EBITDA for this specific project? Are we including the new expansion costs in that number?"
Did the room gasp? Did security come and escort you out for being an imposter?
No, not at all. The presenter stopped and said, "Oh, that's a great clarifying point. We're actually excluding the amortization on the new building for this model." And then, and this is the best part, 2, other people at the table, who are very senior, pulled out their pens and wrote that down. They clearly didn't know either.
You took the bullet for the team.
They did. But it wasn't a bullet. That's the whole point. It was just a question. And it made the whole conversation better.
That is the essence of chasing honest, not flawless. The flawless move is to pretend you know, to maintain the mask. The honest move is to ask. And the honest move actually moved the meeting forward and made things clearer for everyone. The flawless move would have just left everyone confused.
It's a small thing, but it felt like oxygen. It really did. I walked out of that meeting feeling capable and confident, not lucky that I hadn't been caught.
That's the feeling. That's the oxygen Mitchell is talking about. When you let go of the need to be perfect, you get to actually breathe. You get to be present in the room instead of constantly monitoring your own performance and worrying about what everyone thinks of you.
Breath is good. We like breath.
Highly recommended. It It definitely helps with the living.
All right, now we're done. Go ask a dumb question today. Thanks, everyone.
I'll take care.